They always said I was the quiet one, the one who never quite measured up. At family dinners, I was the empty chair between my brother's Wall Street victories and my cousin's law school drama. No one asked what I did, they just assumed I was still working at that weird little antique shop. So, when I offered to cover Thanksgiving dinner this year, they acted like I was playing dress-up in adulthood. What they didn't know was, I wasn't just covering the meal, I'd also just closed a $4 million investor deal in Singapore over Zoom that morning. I never planned to tell them, but that was before my dad barged into my room looking for a wine opener and saw my laptop screen. $15 million. You'd think a family would be proud. Instead, they demanded I do the right thing, and by that, they meant fund their lifestyles. Let me tell you what happened next. Growing up in Seattle, I learned early that silence was my safest choice. My older brother, Brandon, was the Golden Boy varsity athlete, full scholarship to NYU, started his own hedge fund by 26. Every family dinner was a recap of his stock picks and big wins. My cousin Lila just passed the bar on her first try. Aunt Kathy cried with pride. And me? Oh, Avery's still doing that thing with vintage jewelry? Or antiques? Or maybe crafts? No one ever remembered. And honestly, after a while, I stopped correcting them. It wasn't worth the effort, because in their eyes, I was the artsy one, the one with no clear direction. It didn't matter that I graduated top of my class in computer science. It didn't matter that I interned at Google or wrote back-end code for half the e-commerce sites they used daily. If it wasn't flashy, it wasn't real. But I didn't crave their attention, I craved autonomy. When I moved out at 22, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't live for their approval. I'd build something they couldn't understand, couldn't belittle, and wouldn't be able to take away. That's when I started working on Verdura Vault. At first, it was a late-night side project. Just me, my laptop, and a very specific problem. How could you verify the authenticity of rare physical assets, gemstones, vintage timepieces, even NFTs, and tie them to immutable blockchain records? It started in a basement apartment with unreliable heating and a coffee machine that whined louder than it brewed. I coded at night, freelanced during the day, and ate more frozen dumplings than I care to admit. I told my family I was consulting for a friend's shop because, frankly, that lie was easier to swallow than explaining crypto infrastructure to my dad. Brandon once laughed and said, "So you're still playing around with digital monopoly money?" I smiled and nodded. What I didn't tell him was that Verdura Vault had just finished its beta phase with 4 international collectors already signed on. I built slowly, carefully, refused funding at first, refused help. I'd seen what dependency looked like. I didn't want to owe anyone, especially not my family. The most ironic part? While they spent years mocking my little tech thing, I was quietly becoming one of the few women in the country to own 100% equity in a high-value authentication platform. By 30, I had an LLC, a legal team, and a revenue stream I didn't need to brag about. I thought I could keep it all separate. That's what I told myself. But secrets have a way of showing up, especially when you least expect them. Like, on Thanksgiving Day, when all it took was one open laptop screen to tear everything apart. On paper, I was still the same Avery. I still wore jeans from last season's clearance rack, still drove my 2012 Subaru Outback, still brought deviled eggs to family potlucks in a chipped Pyrex dish. My family never asked about my job, so I never offered much. When pressed, I said, "I'm doing some digital consulting work, freelance stuff." They nodded vaguely, then moved on to Brandon's latest luxury condo flip. What they didn't know was that my consulting clients included 2 European auction houses, a Swiss gemstone regulator, and a private collector from Dubai. My little side project now had 6 employees, a secured vault downtown, and a client waiting list 3 months long. And yet, I never corrected them. Every Sunday dinner, I sat at that same scuffed oak table listening to everyone dissect their 401ks and real estate ventures while sipping on boxed wine. Meanwhile, I'd quietly transferred 25-0 that morning to a Singaporean server migration. It was a strange, twisted game I played with myself. How invisible can I be while being everything they underestimate? One time, I wore a vintage Rolex to dinner. No one noticed. Brandon flashed his new Apple Watch like it was a status symbol. Another time, I wore a designer blazer I got in Paris. My aunt complimented the nice thrift store look. I smiled. Said thank you. I suppose I could have shown them the business articles, the bank statements, the valuation reports, but a part of me didn't want to. Because I knew deep down, their opinion of me wasn't based on facts. It was based on a script they had written a long time ago, and in that story, I was always the background character. So I played along. Not out of shame, out of protection. I had built something sacred, private, uncorrupted by their judgment. Verdura Vault wasn't just a company, it was my armor. Then came Thanksgiving. I offered to host for once, and everyone acted like I had announced I was moving to Mars. Are you sure you can afford all that? My mom asked gently. Unless you found a sugar daddy, Brandon joked. I laughed it off. No worries, I've got it covered. What I didn't mention was that the catering was being done by a Michelin-trained private chef I'd hired for corporate retreats before. Or that I'd paid for everything up front, using a business expense card. That day, I wore a simple navy sweater cashmere, Italian knit, cost more than my dad's monthly mortgage payment. Still, to them, I was just Avery, the odd one, the artsy loner, the forgettable daughter. I thought I had mastered the double life. But one unlocked laptop screen was about to undo everything I had so carefully built. Thanksgiving morning was unusually calm. The catering team arrived exactly at 10 a.m., sharp-polished, punctual, professional. I had handpicked them from an exclusive firm I'd used for client events in New York. The kitchen smelled of truffle butter and rosemary glazed lamb, not a frozen turkey or green bean casserole in sight. My parents arrived early, of course. My dad made a comment about how the house smelled expensive, and my mom seemed visibly confused at the absence of stove chaos. Wait, you didn't cook this yourself? She asked, wide-eyed. I coordinated everything, I replied, smiling. The cousins trickled in. Brandon showed up last, per usual, holding a bottle of champagne he would later pretend to have paid for. The dining room looked impeccable, marble plates, minimal aesthetic, candles that cost more than most dinnerware sets. But none of it raised red flags. Until my dad asked for a wine opener. I'd forgotten to take it out of the kitchen drawer, so I told him to check the side table in my office upstairs. I didn't think twice. Why would I? My laptop was open on my desk, logged into Verdura Vault's back-end admin panel. I'd been reviewing final numbers from a closed sale in Hong Kong earlier that morning and forgot to shut it down. I was in the dining room folding napkins when I heard his voice. Avery, what is this? I turned. There he was standing at the top of the stairs, my MacBook in his hands, eyes wide, brows furrowed. 15 million? He said. Is this real? Silence fell across the room like a dropped plate. Everyone turned to look. I froze. My instinct said, deny, deflect, downplay, but something in me snapped. Maybe it was the years of being underestimated. Or the look of suspicion on his face, like I had committed a crime by succeeding silently. So I said it clearly, calmly. Yes, it's real. Rachel, my cousin, choked on her wine. Brandon's jaw dropped. Mom clutched her pearls like I had just confessed to robbing a bank. My dad descended the stairs slowly, still holding the laptop. How long have you had this much? He asked. Long enough, I said. But it's not personal money. Most of it's tied to the company. He blinked, confused. What company? Verdura Vault. I own it. I built it. More silence. Brandon let out a scoff. Wait, are you saying you're some kind of tech CEO now? I just looked at him, didn't say a word. And that was when the air shifted. This wasn't curiosity anymore. It was entitlement. The same family that never asked about my work was now leaning forward, their eyes glinting not with pride, but with possibility. Like they had just discovered a gold mine in their own bloodline. It happened so fast, I almost laughed. Just minutes before, they had been treating me like the family oddball, the creative type, who probably still rented furniture and shopped clearance sales. Now it was as if I'd walked in with a suitcase full of unclaimed lottery tickets. My mom recovered first. She stepped forward slowly, her voice suddenly tender. "Sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? We could have helped. We've always supported you." I nearly choked. Supported me? Like when they skipped my graduation to attend Brandon's real estate expo? Like when they forgot my birthday 3 years in a row? Like when they asked if I wanted to, maybe marry rich instead? But I didn't say any of that. Not yet. Brandon was next. He grinned like a politician and clapped me on the back hard. "Well, damn, Ave. I mean, if you ever want to diversify, I've got this crypto mining idea I've been toying with. Could use some seed money." Cousin Rachel chimed in. "Ooh, I've been wanting to launch a vintage handbag resale brand. Could be, like, a sister venture. Think about it." Uncle Derek raised his glass. "Looks like the family's got its own little unicorn. Cheers to that." And just like that, the room turned transactional. No one asked how I did it. No one asked what I built. They just saw commas and decimal points. Suddenly, I was no longer Avery, the quiet one. I was a potential distributor of comfort, upgrades, and second chances. And then came the one question I knew was coming. My dad cleared his throat. "So, we were thinking, if you're in a position to help, maybe it's time to consider giving back to the family a little." My fork paused mid-air. "Giving back?" I echoed. He nodded slowly. "You know, support your brother's business, help your mom and I pay off the house. Rachel's still got loans. You're doing well. We're proud of you, honey, but success is sweeter when shared." Success is sweeter when shared? I stared at the table set with designer plates, food flown in from chefs they couldn't pronounce, and candles lit with money they thought I didn't have. I looked up. Mom was already tearing up. Brandon looked expectant. Rachel had her phone half out, probably Googling handbag manufacturers. That was the moment I realized. They didn't see me. They saw an ATM with a heart rate. They didn't want my story, they wanted my signature. And they were just getting started. I knew the moment was coming, but it still hit like a slap. Dad set my laptop down on the table like it was evidence in a courtroom. He folded his hands, his tone shifting from gentle curiosity to something colder measured. "Avery, we've been talking," he began. "And considering everything, maybe it's time we all sat down and figured out a plan." "A plan?" I asked. "For the family," Mom added quickly, her voice soft like she was soothing a nervous animal. "We're not asking for anything unreasonable, just something fair." "Fair," I repeated, testing the word like it tasted off. Brandon leaned forward. "I did the math. If you just put, say, 2 million into a family fund, we could pay off everyone's debts, invest in real estate together, and still have plenty left for your company. It's not like it'll make a dent in 15 million. Rachel chimed in with wide eyes. "And I've been thinking about going back to school for luxury branding. A trust or something would really help with tuition, and honestly, with my experience, I could help with your company's image." My aunt nodded enthusiastically. "A little seed funding for the next generation. That's what family is all about, right?" I sat back in my chair, breathing slowly through my nose. My heart was beating fast, but not from panic. From rage, cold, controlled rage. They didn't ask why I built the company. Didn't ask how many nights I stayed up researching security protocols. Didn't care that I'd gone 6 months without a single day off. They weren't proud. They were opportunistic. It wasn't congratulations. It was a takeover attempt, disguised as love. I met my father's eyes. Let me get this straight. You want me to create a fund, so you can live more comfortably, because I worked hard, in silence, and made something of myself. He blinked. It's not about comfort, it's about support. We're a family. I turned to my mom. You once told me I should just marry someone rich and stop dreaming. That tech wasn't for girls like me. Her cheeks flushed. That was years ago. We didn't mean it like that. Brandon laughed awkwardly. Come on, Av. You've been keeping this from us, don't act like the victim now. I leaned forward. No, I didn't keep anything from you. You never asked. Not once. Not during the years I ate canned soup in a studio apartment. Not when I coded all night to get my platform secure. Not when I got my first client. You didn't care when I was building something. You care now that it's built. Silence fell. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but I raised a hand. Let me finish. I've watched this family throw thousands at Brandon's ventures, praise Rachel for every new Instagram follower, and act like my achievements were inconveniences. I've listened to you dismiss what I do as arts and crafts. And now that I have money, suddenly I'm valuable? Mom looked stricken. Sweetheart, we just want to be part of your life. No, I said sharply. You want a piece of what I built. That's not love. That's extraction. Then I stood up. I'm not here to fund your fantasies. I came here to share a meal, not my bank account. I looked around the room, me family frozen, expressions ranging from stunned to offended. You wanted to know what I've been doing all these years? This is it. I've been building a future where I don't have to beg for approval, a life where I don't owe anyone explanations, and definitely not payouts. Then I walked away. The dining room, the candles, the 200 wine, the custom linen napkins blurred behind me like a museum of people who never knew me. And just like that, I closed the door on them. But it wasn't over yet. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I just walked out calm, certain, and done. I got in my car, me discreet, electric black SUV, and drove through the crisp Seattle night in complete silence. The streets were almost too quiet for a holiday. It was as if the city itself was giving me space to breathe. When I got home, I didn't cry. I poured myself a glass of winereal wine, the kind aged longer than Brandon's last business venture, and opened my laptop. Dozens of unread messages flashed across the screen. They had already started. Mom, 7:23 p.m. Avery, please call me. We need to talk calmly. Dad, 7:41 p.m. What happened back there was out of line. This is not how family treats each other. Brandon, 8:03 p.m. So, you're just going to walk out and leave us hanging? Rachel, 8:12 p.m. I can't believe you would humiliate us like that, in front of everyone. They weren't sorry. They were outraged because they had just learned they couldn't control me anymore. The next day, it escalated. My cousin tagged me in a Facebook post about selfish tech elites. My aunt shared a thinly veiled Bible verse about those who hoard treasures on earth. Rachel DM'd my assistant, asking if she could book a quick coffee chat about brand consulting. I stared at the screen in disbelief. And then, it got worse. Monday morning, I arrived at my office and found my family in the lobby. Yes, the lobby. Mom, Dad, and Rachel had apparently told the front desk they had a scheduled meeting. When my receptionist asked who with, they just said, the CEO, like they own the title. Jenny, my assistant, texted me in a panic. Your family's downstairs, refusing to leave, wanting financial planning support. I almost laughed. I went downstairs. There they were, Mom holding a thick manila folder, Dad dressed like he was headed to court, Rachel with a fake designer handbag clutched like a weapon. Dad stood up. We've come to talk. We have a proposal. I'm not interested, I said flatly. You owe us that much, Mom snapped. We raised you. No, I replied. You raised an idea of me you could ignore. I raised myself. Rachel stepped forward. Avery, don't be dramatic. We just want a piece of what you've built. It's not like you earned all that on your own. And that was it. the sentence that lit the final fuse. I walked to the front desk, pulled out my phone, and opened the banking app tied to the monthly transfers I'd been sending my parents, 50 a month, every month, for years. I clicked cancel. The sound of the confirmation chime was deafening in the quiet lobby. Mom gasped. Dad looked like I'd stabbed him. Rachel's jaw dropped. I want it on record, I said to the receptionist, that none of these people are to be allowed upstairs or onto company premises without my written permission. Effective immediately. Jenny nodded, stunned. My father stepped toward me, anger rising in his voice. You can't do this. We're family. No, I said, we're blood, but family is earned. And with that, I turned and walked to the elevator. They didn't follow. But the fallout did. For the next week, I got texts from every possible angle. Great Aunt Sheila, my second cousin's husband, even Rachel's ex-boyfriend messaged me saying, hey, if you're investing, I've got a startup idea. I blocked them all. I told my legal team to send a cease and desist notice if any of them contacted the company again. I was done. I changed my number. I moved out of my townhouse to a penthouse apartment with coded elevator access and 24/7 security. And for the first time since I started Verdura Vault, I took a deep breath free of pretending, free of family expectations, free of guilt. That's the thing about success when it's quiet. People underestimate you. But the moment you show it, they try to take it. And that Thanksgiving? It wasn't the day I lost my family. It was the day I finally reclaimed myself. There's a strange stillness that comes after severing ties. Not silence, there's still noise. Your phone vibrates with unknown numbers. Your email filters catch waves of passive-aggressive outreach from old contacts, suddenly remembering your name. But internally, it's still, like a room that's been decluttered after years of suffocation. My new apartment sat high above downtown Seattle, with a view of the Sound that changed color with every hour. I kept it minimalist stone countertops, clean lines, everything in its place. No family portraits, no inherited furniture, no reminders of the people who only remembered me when they wanted something. Instead, I filled it with what I had earned. A bookshelf lined with tech patents and rare art books. A custom-built workstation with triple encryption layers. A vault room with pieces I'd personally authenticated, many of which now had 6 to 7 figure valuations. This wasn't luxury for show. It was power I built, piece by piece, on my own terms. And finally, I was living it. Verdura Vault expanded into Toronto and London that quarter. Our fourth office opened in Tokyo. I hired a wellness coach, started lifting weights again, and spent weekends consulting pro bono for women-led startups that couldn't afford high-end authentication support. I never once regretted cutting them off. If anything, I regretted not doing it sooner. Because once the noise fades, something unexpected takes its place. Clarity. Clarity that I don't owe anyone access to what I've earned. Clarity that success means nothing if you're shrinking yourself to maintain the illusions of people who never saw you clearly. Grandma used to tell me, blood is biology, but love? Love is proof. And she was right. Proof came in the form of quiet mentors, midnight supporters, old professors who sent recommendation letters when my parents couldn't be bothered to ask what I was studying. Proof came from the people who never asked me what I could give, but simply stood beside me while I figured out who I was becoming. And now? Now I was finally becoming her. Not the daughter they forgot. Not the shadow behind my brother's spotlight. But the woman who built her own kingdom, and finally had the peace to live inside it. 3 months after that Thanksgiving, I got a call from Forbes. Apparently, one of our recent authentication cases, an Imperial Russian brooch linked to the Romanov dynasty, had made quiet waves in elite collector circles. The reporter wanted to profile the tech behind our process, and I agreed on one condition. My name could be used. For the first time, I didn't hide behind the team or a generic CEO credit. I sat for the interview. We talked blockchain, physical to digital mapping, the black market for forged heirlooms, Then the journalist asked, offhandedly, "Where'd you learn to read jewelry like this?" And I said simply, in silence. The piece dropped a week later. The woman who sees value where no one looks. It went viral. Suddenly, my inbox was filled with invitations, industry panels, investment talks, even an honorary degree proposal from my old university. And with visibility came something else. Recognition. But not from the people I thought it would come from. Not one call from Dad. Not a single text from Brandon. No apology from Rachel. Instead, what came was a message from someone I didn't expect. Grandma June's old friend, Alice. She sent me a scanned photo at 8 years old, helping arrange Grandma's bead collection at the kitchen table. In the corner of the photo, Grandma had written in faded ink, "Avery sees what others miss. She always will." I stared at it for a long time. And then I smiled. Not because they were proud of me, but because I was finally proud of myself. A week later, I returned to Seattle City Hall to deliver a private seminar to a group of young girls interested in tech entrepreneurship. I wore a charcoal blazer, simple heels, and a vintage necklace I'd restored myself. Halfway through the session, a girl raised her hand. "How did you know when you'd made it?" I paused, then said, "When I stopped needing them to notice."